Say it's alright, the music's good. Cause it's alright, it's alright. Say it's alright, oh, it's alright, oh, it's alright. We're gonna lose it slow.
Welcome to Our Stories Matter. I'm Sam Lasalde.
And I'm Susie Hess.
Our Stories Matter is hosted by Trauma Informed LA and the amazing music by Torrance Brandon Reese, founding member of the music group Street Corner Renaissance. Our Stories Matter at Locals Only acknowledges the Gabrielino and Tongva peoples as the traditional land caretakers of Towangar, the Los Angeles Basin and Southern Channel Islands. We pay our respects to the Honugvetam, our ancestors, Ahihirom, our elders, and Eohinkem, our relatives and relations past, present, and emerging.
All right, so I am super excited. Steve Kim and Mary Vu are here today. Steve Kim, who is a good friend and co-founder of Project Kinship, where he serves individuals impacted by gangs and incarceration with the aim to successfully reintegrate them back into the workforce, schools, and community. His dedication to breaking cycles of incarceration, gang membership, and community violence stems over 15 years of working with traumatized and abandoned youth throughout Orange County. Steve is highly regarded for his human rights work in the field of forensic social work, where he led multidisciplinary teams to identify early childhood traumas on high-profile death penalty cases. He is sought out for his expertise on understanding root causes of violence and has facilitated trainings on the state and federal levels of the criminal justice system. He is currently an adjunct professor with the University of Southern California Suzanne Dorick Peck School of Social Work, and he holds a master's degree in social work from USC as well. Steve's combination of lived experience has an unending heart for the abandoned and disenfranchised continues to be the driving force in standing together in the margins of inequality among gang and formerly incarcerated populations to create a hope for the future. Welcome, Steve, total badass. And then I'm going to introduce Mary, who also is a co-founder of Project Kinship. Mary Vu was born to Vietnamese refugee parents. Mary is a proud Orange County native. As a licensed clinical social worker, Mary is the first woman in her family to graduate with not only a degree, but also complete postgraduate studies. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in Criminology, Law and Society from the University of California, Irvine, and a Master's in Social Work from USC Suzanne Dorick Peck School of Social Work. She is dedicated to multi-level development and planning for the overall equity and sustainability of communities. She is no stranger to serving Orange County's most marginalized communities, in particular by helping those to heal with issues of domestic violence, child abuse, trauma, and addiction. As co-founder of Project Kinship and an advocate for reform, Mary believes in systemically improving the opportunities of those individuals re-entering communities by fostering individual transformation, hope, and resilience. Whoa, I mean, this is a dream team of Orange County. This is really the heartbeat of Orange County that I see. So welcome, Mary and Steve. I'm super excited for you to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, Steve, it's awesome to have you guys on here.
Appreciate y'all. You guys are fam, so it's just like a good family reunion. Appreciate the love.
It is a family reunion.
Okay, so I'm gonna just roll into our first question, and this is for both of you. Can you guys describe your work related to trauma and healing?
Our work, 100% of the people that we get to serve have been impacted by trauma. Not only just an incident of trauma, but there's just so many multiple layers. We know that many of our folks, for so many reasons, have fallen through the cracks at a very early age, sometimes even before birth, and trauma that even the mom has to carry that gets passed on to their child before they're even born. And so there's so many cases that we come across where trauma has been leading many of our lives, and we know that many of them grow up in their survival brain. Many folks by the age of 10 years old have had to carry more than most folks have to carry in a lifetime. And so we've learned that. We've learned that trauma really impacts people, no matter what zip code you're from. And the zip codes we happen to serve have been overwhelmed with trauma in so many ways, including systemic trauma. I think we have known that going into the work, but now as we're in the trenches working in the community, we see it every day. But the great news is that we get to identify it, and the community knows it's trauma as well. It's not like we're teaching the community about trauma. They're teaching us, and they're not, we don't need to go into a community and say, hey, this is causing trauma. They know it, and they have a lot to teach us as well. So, we are now looking towards how does one heal from it, because it's possible that people can heal through trauma, but healing only happens together.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Mary, can you share a little bit of how your work is related to trauma and healing?
For us, when we first started the organization, it's kind of changing that whole narrative of who we work with, right? So like system impacted, gang related folks, a lot of folks in Orange County, they see them very differently. So for us to say like, hey, the root cause of it is trauma. And I think for us, we're lucky enough to say, hey, we have MSWs, blah, 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 whatever, to kind of solidify like, hey, this is really what's happening with this population. And for us, and the lens that we see our people and our staff, is through a trauma-informed lens. So that's been truly our success. And we always say, like, just treat people, like how you would treat each other, That's kind of, Steve definitely went through like complex trauma, informative trauma, and things like that. But it's just realizing that our population has been truly traumatized and they're not bad people, and just really changing that narrative of like what really happened, or what's going on.
I so appreciate that. And seriously, you both always speak from your heart, which is why probably the success of Project Kinship is that it really is heart focused. And just saying, we're learning from communities versus we are teaching communities anything. I think you create like an amazing support hub for folks in Orange County. And then when you were talking about systemic trauma, and as we think about what's happening with COVID, and the impact on Black communities, and imagining obviously the impact of the revolution that's always happened, but now there's more folks, really white folks, who are rising up as well. How do you both imagine things to be different now, personally and professionally? And either one could go first. Like, how is life different now with the revolution and a pandemic?
Social media has changed the game. It's bringing to light what's been whispers and sometimes shouts, but now there's evidence of what people have been saying for a really long time. Even with that evidence, we see additional incidents happening over and over again. It's being documented. I think social media is changing the game a little bit. I think we have to build on it. I think there's an end goal of where we want to get to, and there's a beautiful goal. Now it's find the right people to put in the work to get us closer to that goal. And it's really paying respect to the pioneers before us who are getting ready to pass the baton on to many of us now, in all of our counties. And so it's not like, this work has been done. It's just that, social media is letting us advance a little bit more as far as being able to come out to the public. Hopefully it changes public opinion so that policies can change. Give an example of things like juveniles that were convicted as super predators. There's a lot of damage to families and kids who spent 20 years in prison. Now they're being released because people agree that the brain doesn't fully develop till their mid-20s. The voters are saying, hey, that makes sense, but we damaged many kids' lives who at 16 went to prison back in the 80s. And so I think we have to keep building on these truths to influence the public and to have folks that continue to fight in their different lanes so that we can keep moving towards, unfortunately, inching our way towards where we want to get to. And that's a world where, these things like poverty and intergenerational gang violence gets passed on. So I'm kind of going on a rant, but I think we have to progress to find the right people to keep fighting in their lanes. But I do think that things are changing slowly. Even like Project Kinship in Orange County, it wouldn't have been able to exist 10 years ago, and here we are. There's places that are popping up. There's like Neutral Ground. It's another organization that's here. And other places are popping up in Orange County who are community based and are doing great work. And so we need to keep building on things like this so that we don't go backwards and lose our foothold in the great work that we want to do. And so.
No, that totally makes sense. I mean, yeah, all the work you're doing and in Orange County. I mean, yeah, that's huge. And Mary, what would you like to add?
I think Steve and I have had that privilege, and we actually met with a couple of other leaders of color, and we talked about most organizations, it's not run by like two people. We've been able to sit together, of our own successes, but also like what we're good at, like I would never, Steve is so amazing and like being front and center. And I hate that crap, I'm like, oh, please put me in the back, even though Steve is always like, hey, can you come up front? But I think because we've had each other, we've been able to have these like serious conversations of race and inequality and equity, and also understanding our own privilege too, in Orange County or just as a whole, we're Asian American, and so a lot of what's happening that we've always known is the effects of our brothers and sisters that are Black and brown, right? And so we're lucky to have those intimate conversations. What's great now is that it's kind of in the forefront. It's out there. It's in the public, not only like more progressive cities, but just like nationwide. So it's having those conversations, or at least it's out there. And for Orange County, for it to be out there is important. Instead of these like side conversations like, hey, I know it's like this and this, where I think for now, it's at least it's a little more open.
I mean, I think you both are just such an amazing team, because it is like yin and yang, right? And you both bring so much. And I was so worried, Mary, that you wouldn't be on, because I know you don't like being front and center, but your voice is so powerful. And I'm so grateful that your voice is going to be heard by many.
Yeah, thank you.
Steve, so Susie sort of alluded to it a little bit in going through your bio and introducing you, but can you tell us a little bit of your why for doing this work? Why are you so invested in providing these services and addressing trauma out here in OC?
Yeah, I realize that I'm such a damaged human being from birth. I've just been through so much. I don't really share often about it because it's so distant now, but I realize that, I have a 10-year-old son. And I was driving with him the other day, and he's just a really cool, goofy kid. And as he's going into 6th grade, he's doing what 6th graders should be doing, hanging out with his friends, got his little glasses, he's reading books, Harry Potter, and he's having fun. And I was thinking about how flashback on my life. By the time I was in 6th grade, I had like A through Z done to me, and I had done A through Z. And I realized that I never got the help for that, which took me into a lot of different problems as an adolescent. And I had so much pain. I went through the system as a juvenile, as an adult, got drug addiction, all that stuff. And once I realized, I started learning about what healing could look like and what hope could look like. Great fortune of having just good people sporadically in my life that helped me. I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And I'm very fortunate because a lot of people want to do that, but don't have the opportunity to do that. I really was able to work it through. I'm a person of faith. And so I always say, be careful what you ask God for, you might get it. And for some reason, that path has been carved out for me, where today I get to run kinship with Mary. But I think for me, once I found a pathway to help people, and I found it through education, through great folks in the community, I knew I couldn't go back. It just, everything started coming forward, from getting out of rehab, in jail, to driving a trash truck, being on welfare, not having money to buy diapers, sharing McDonald's Happy Meals. Those memories all played a big part of me on what drives me to this day on the work that I get to do with Mary and kinship and all of you here. We're all on the same thread, that we want to imagine a world where it looks different than what we experienced growing up. And so I'm just driven, man. I'm older now, so I'm losing steam a little more. I'm not as I get tired now, but it just means that I work smarter. And that's my lesson now. It's not about me. It's not about me as well. That as I get to serve, and I don't save people, but I do feel like all that pain in my life gets better and better as I learn, as I get to heal from being with all of you and people we get to work with and people we serve. And so I feel very fortunate, man.
Well, we need to throw some coals in that engine, man. Keep it burning, because I don't know. I don't know if you found out or have heard, but I recently came on board with Neutral Ground over here in Orange County. So I got a ton to learn about the area, and so I'm looking forward to be able to work with you, man, and learn from you.
Dude, we need you, man. And this, that's our brother organization. So we, it's gonna be good. So I'm super glad you're on board. And yeah, I think that goal for me these days is a celery juice. Yeah, man, I'm excited. So yeah, it's like that, right? Like finding folks who understand the community, who have a heart for the community, who in for an added touch, who have like lived experience. We gotta all do it together, man. So,
Mary, can you tell us a little bit about your why?
It's really interesting when I was listening to Susie talk about my bio. I really don't really read it that often, even though it's on the website all the time. And I think I purposely wrote that I came from Vietnamese immigrants. My parents actually came here when it was during the war. So they literally like ran when there was like bombs coming down, and they were the first families that went on the boat and almost died, and my brother almost fell off and all that stuff. But it really speaks to the trauma that my parents went through, and my brother, and intergenerational trauma. For me, growing up, I could understand what happened to my parents looking back, hindsight as a social worker. How I actually met Steve was through Department of Education. And my background is really like therapy as a therapist, and doing my own work and understanding there's a mutuality of, hey, like when I started doing the work, I'm like, how do I connect with a kid that's like gang involved and, has all these other things? But when I started to really work with them, there was so much commonality based on my own background. And what I realized was a couple of things. One is that I'm so fortunate to share my own story and to help whoever I was working with at the time, even now, like our team and our agency, to heal from it. Because you can break from the cycle of violence. As we talk about, it's not just what we say, it's truly how I really feel, because, I'm a testament to it. Steve's a testament to it. And so I'm really a proponent on healing yourself, like I'm like such, and Steve can say this, I'm such a person saying like, hey, you got to get your stuff together, because our work is so important. The more you work on yourself, the more you can heal the other people and the community. And so that's a huge piece of it. It's just me knowing that what I do is very sacred. And it's also faith-based, just like with Steve, this is how we kind of connected. So through Father Greg, and really, he really has said, and I truly believe it, is that people are not broken and that we are perfect in God's eyes, right? And I want for folks to remember that. That's kind of why I do the work. And also I'm, when you really get to know me, I'm always thinking like, how can I do things better? What's not working and how can I improve it? And that's always been kind of who I am as a person. Efficiency, is it effective? Is it efficient? This is probably why I'm the back end person, like program, like, why are we doing this? Like, can we make it better? Can we make it sustainable? Like, I'm that person. So that's how I think. But my heart is truly because of my faith. So,
Mary, you just gave me so many goosebumps. Just saying, people are not broken. It's so true. And I don't even think systems are broken. I think systems are doing what they were always intended to do, right? And it's not the people. And so when you said that, I'm like, oh my God, that is the most powerful thing that I've heard, because it's so true. And, I don't think there's really such a thing as we're done healing, right? Like I'm still healing. I still get triggered with my own past. I think we're constantly healing and learning, but it takes someone who's brave to say that and to actually be that reflective, because it's so not easy. I'm wondering how, for both of you, this work has been healing for you.
I think for Kinship, we've created a space where it is very safe for folks to kind of heal, and whether we understand through when people are acting out or acting in or whatever, we truly have that lens like, okay, what is really happening? Just to let you know that, just as kinship as a foundation of who we are. Since I started working in this work like in 2003, whatever, until now, I'm so affected by who I work with and the healing that they have given me to remember that vulnerability is really important because it's so hard. You know, can I swear on this?
Yes.
Our kids, you know, when they work, they're like, who the fuck are you? You know, like, you fucking Chinita, like, what do you know? And so really having those intimate conversations has been truly helpful for me through the years to say like, okay, who are you? You know, and to be open about it has been able for me to continue to heal. Also, in order for me to lead this organization with Steve, I need to do my work. And I know this through and through. I cannot be some crazy ass person running the org, because we see this a lot of the times, people getting burned out or whatever. And to stay with what is intended is for the people. This is not about me. This is about our people and the work. And I know this truly. And so when I see I'm getting triggered, and Steve and I have, like, we've been working together long enough where now we know each other so well, you know? I know when he triggers me, he knows when I trigger him, and it's actually kind of funny now. So it's been really healing in that way. I think personally I've been a better person through kinship.
That's, I mean, not only a beautiful thing, it's honorable in the sense of like what really stood out to me is when, you know, you guys were first going through your bios and the first couple questions, we mentioned about all this movement with brown and black folk and everything that's happening, right? Socially, these uprisings that are going on. And often, especially here across LA for me, and now I'm seeing in Orange County, like Asian Americans are like the marginalized group within the marginalized, right? And you guys are still standing up. You're still standing up and leading this charge, you know, alongside all these other change makers.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you look historically, we've been supportive of the movement, and I think culturally, what we've learned, at least for me, for Vietnamese American, we kind of are like more quiet. We don't say like, "Hey, we're here, yay!" You know, I think what is really great is this new generation, and even like my generation, is really being out there, which is amazing. And I'm so proud of the youth. That's all I'll say. Like, I love the youth, and I'm so proud of them, and just like they're truly transforming our nation, you know.
I couldn't believe, and then Steve, I'm curious too with your thoughts. I met someone recently who was formerly incarcerated, is Asian, and he was telling me, and I'm sure you all know this, that Asians inside are called the other. I couldn't believe it. It wasn't even black and brown and white. It was the other. And so then I was asking him, what does that mean? And how does that even sink in as, you know, the other, which I think is what Sam started, you know, to say. So, I mean, yeah, I think the youth are rising up, and they're the ones who are really going to, you know, make so much change. I mean, they already are. So Steve, yeah, how has this work been healing for you?
Actually, Mary's taught me a lot about healing. I came from a space where I learned a lot, but I think that I need some healing after that space. And so Mary, being the clinician she is, and she's a healer, you know, and so I've learned a lot from her. And then we survived it. I mean, I don't even, you know, we learned how to work with each other to lead something greater than ourselves. But I think two things that come to mind is you have to stay humble, you know, and humility and vulnerability are two ingredients to healing. You know, to recognize that I'm not perfect. Perfection is not the key. You know, me growing up, my weakness is intimacy, interpersonal intimacy, because my father didn't pass it on to me. And so I think for me, it's learning those things, you know, learning how to be vulnerable, learning how to trust. You know, a lot of us grow up with broken trust at such an early age. So we get to practice that here, you know, with folks who come in, and we always try to equalize the table. You know, we really try to live and breathe seeing people where they're at, and recognizing their worth. And our people that we serve bring healing to us. I'll give you a quick story. I was driving to work one day, and on Main Street, I see 3 teenagers from about maybe a mile, I don't know if it's a mile, maybe half a mile away. They were sitting at the bus stop. And I noticed them because I knew they were teenagers, dressed like they're from a neighborhood, baggy pants. One could possibly think that they're gang related. I was profiling, yeah. Well, so I was profiling, and I feel like, well, not only that, it was that, and they were like smacking each other on the butt, then knocking each other's hats off, laughing, jumping in and out of the street. So I'm like, what is going on there? And I'm, man, I bet you those are our kids. I bet you those are our kids. So I drive over there and I drive into the parking lot, and sure enough, they're our kids. And they're just goofing around, just having fun during COVID. I take the bus, and I pull up and I joke around. I go, hey, where are you guys from? And obviously, say that to gang members. They look at me and they're mad dogging. They're like, what? And then of course, once we recognize each other, throw their hands up, and they had these big childish Kool-Aid smiles. Hey, what's up, dog? How's it going? And it just brightened up my day, And they, I just noticed them because I know that all 3 of those kids, one had their brother killed, 3 of them are in poverty, drug abuse, mom's in prison. They have every reason not to smile. But on that day, knowing what they have to carry, they light up. And it heals me. Heals me to know that, at their very young age during COVID, being goofballs at the bus stop, that they have enough to pass on to me some healing to recognize my worth of somebody worthy of their smiles. And so when I drove my way, come here, dog. So one jumps over the fence, almost breaks his neck. And he's like, what's up, dog? Comes to the window, no social distancing, which is fine. I give him like $15. Hey, go get some lunch, right? Some would think that I did them a favor, but he turns around, he takes about 10 steps, and he walks around with the cash, he looks at it, turns around, smiles at me, he goes, you're the man. And I just said, no, you're the man. And in that transaction, one has to ask the question, who touched the person's soul more? $15 for lunch, or a 17-year-old kid with his brother who was killed, mom in prison, dad on the streets, giving me a reflection of my own worth. And I would say I got the better end of that deal. And that happens all the time at kinship, all the time, if one is able to recognize it.
Same thing for me. Like when I first started in this work, at gang intervention, gang prevention, mm-hmm. I was torn in that. Yeah, I'm providing this service. It's holistic sort of wraparound services for these youth and these families. But my drive mm-hmm. was more, yes, in part, I'm paying things forward, but it felt so good for me. Like it brought me healing. Like it brought me just a sense of redemption for what I had been putting out into the world for so long.
Yeah, a lot of folks, it's hard for them to receive back, but that's humility to say, hey, dude, like you're actually gonna give me something back, and you're willing to receive it, and then it brings healing to you, and that's different than a hand, was it a hand down or something, or a handout? It's a mutual exchange on, hey, you're my brother, you're my sister, I got your back right now, and we're gonna work it out together,
Oh my God, Steve. I mean, you both are just incredibly healing. Just in this conversation, I feel every story and every thought, and you feel that it's coming from your heartbeat, which is why I keep calling you both like the heartbeats of Orange County, because you really, you feel people's soul. And I know you both would say, no, they feel ours. And I think that's probably the power of it all. And the same thing, but for me, just in intimate partner violence, like therapy wasn't so helpful for me, but the activism was, being in DV shelters and advocating for policy change, like that fueled my sort of purpose of like, this is why I went through all of that, because now I could be in this sort of like space with the passion.
So what's new and emerging for both of you, personally and professionally? Like what's coming up for Project Kinship? What's coming up for you guys in your personal lives?
Well, speaking about trauma and healing, I'm really trying to sink my teeth into becoming more clinical. Well, Mary's taught me a lot. Of course, she continues to teach me. So finding out additional experts out there. Susie taught the class, taught us stuff, to really understand trauma and healing. So I'm really fixated on that these days. I want to learn more, find ways to not only heal but help others heal. For kinship, we're still growing, and so we're still growing. So I think now it's figuring out to grow wisely. We know that there's huge gap for transitional age youth because for our schools program, we don't want to see kids graduating from our school program or not graduating school ending up in our adult reentry program. And so we want to focus on 16 to 24-year-olds and really help them. There's not that much out there, and so it's such a vulnerable age. So a lot of our future is going to be built around that. We're going to be moving or get some space soon to accommodate our growth. We want to do our social enterprise, and so we've got some ways to create jobs and create more income for the organization. Ultimately, leave a staple here, and so I think we're about 5 years out from our next huge growth. The last thing I'll say is the one thing we will maintain is our hiring practices. So we are I think we've dropped a little bit. We used to be 70, 75, but maybe 65 now, 70. Formerly lived experience folks that work for us, and they're amazing at their work. That's why we've grown so much, but they probably wouldn't be hired at 95% of other organizations because of hiring practices. So we need to keep that growing. We need to keep fighting for that in Orange County, keeping people of color employed. So we're at 80 or 90% people of color. Females, they run the world here, and so they lead our leadership, and they're totally kicking some serious butt here. And so we want to continue to create positions of leadership for women. We just keep flowing.
And we got a plan to see how we can reinforce the partnership with NG.
Yeah, for sure. That's all day. So, that we got to create some space because we're all so busy. But yes, and we should just intentionally create space for sure. Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to add this because Steve is, like Susie says, so humble about it. I know that Steve and other organizations like Neutral Ground and things like that really been doing a lot of that state work and doing that regional work of transforming the system, and just us continuing to change the system in Orange County, how we can bridge that and really transform it. And I think we've been really lucky to be part of that table. Like Steve says, it's about humility, but I think it's really taken us really far because we don't know everything, but we've been able to work with people who do know or know a little bit. And this is one of the secrets too. Every time I go to a county meeting, every time when if there's because I hate these meetings, meaning being out there, I always take a homie, whether it's Steve or it was one of the homies, just because I think it's important for system folks, for the community to really see that they are the face. I always say this to Steve, you're the face, dude. Or the homies, they're nah, boss lady, you're going to go out there. Nah, dude, you're going. You are our agency, So I think it's continuing doing what we're doing,
I'm going to jump ahead a little bit just because I know we're tight on our time, but what action steps can listeners take, people who are tuning in to Our Stories Matter, to get involved with Project Kinship? How would they be able to support?
You can always donate, www.projectkinship.org. That's the whole way. What I think for us is you can volunteer. We always tell people there's so many different programs right now, but before they jump into a program, we always have people feel the heartbeat first. So we have them attend some of our groups and make sure they like our people, because they come in here not like our people, and then it just would be a bad combination. So I think if people are interested in volunteering to come just spend time with us, let us learn from them and learn about our people and how we do the work. We do it in a very special way. And then I think in general, vote, get out there and vote for policies that impact our people. And then also change the narrative. That is such an important piece that we've learned at Kinship since 2013, before we officially even got our name, 2014, is anytime you have a demonized population, there can be unthinkable things done to that population because they're not seen as human. So in everything that people do out there is remember us, remember the reentry folks, remember kids who are in gangs, and think about the root causes and think about how to change the narrative, inform the public on, they're not just bad people out there causing crime. You know, that it's a serious issue on many things. And I think it's changing the narrative. I think through conversations, through trainings, I think it's helping us change the narrative because it's a big fight for us.
Yeah. And the reason Sam and I were smiling is I was texting him and I was like, hey, can I ask a voting question? And he was like, do it. And then you started talking about voting. You know, this season really is focused a lot on anti-racism and propositions and healing, which you're both, you know, sort of touching on all three. I'm wondering, because the elections are, you know, so close now, are there propositions that you could put out there that folks can learn more about? Or is there a place that folks can like learn about the propositions, especially with vulnerable youth and the policies that are impacting the Black and Brown communities and mass incarceration?
We've had some meetings internally, especially we've been part of the census on just getting people to do census first. And now we're transitioning over to what are those specific things we want to get people on board with. I would say look out for us in the next probably few weeks to have some information on that. We're working internally, but also get involved. You know, get involved with Trauma Informed LA. You know, places like us, and places who are really close to the work. So as they learn about what to vote for, it's always stronger to even see the people, right? Because then it really becomes real for them. But I know they're trying to repeal 47. You know, there's a lot of controversy around Prop 47. We want to look at that stuff. We don't want to do that. You know, we want to help people, general public, understand that, you know, incarcerating folks is not going to be helpful. I'll give you a quick example why. Before Prop 47, a residue of methamphetamines would be a felony no matter what. You have an empty baggie with residue in it of methamphetamines, that's a felony. And we know that a person with a felony conviction will encounter over 46,000 collateral consequences and barriers to employment. Most people with felonies don't know that. They just know what it feels like every time they see a no. But now I understand why people can't get back on their feet and their families suffer from it, because they're, even after people do their time. Now, because of Prop 47, that same empty baggie would be a misdemeanor, which is different. I mean, you're not going to encounter so many barriers. That was my felony. It was empty baggie that I pleaded guilty for because I wanted to get out, and it made 15 years of my reentry very difficult. You know, now because of 47, I wouldn't have had to experience all those closed doors. And these are like things for financial aid in the beginning, getting a job, county assistance, all these things, which on the ground level, what that means for people who take 3 buses, walk, wait 3 hours in line, and they get in there and they say no, that's a really bad day. And then after that no, it's going back out in the hot sun, sharing an icy at 7-Eleven, trying to figure out how am I going to get groceries for this week. On the ground level, for people's lives, it really makes things difficult. I know I'm ranting a little bit, but I would say just I want to show a picture of understand these types of policies and what it means for people in the community, which, you know, could often relate to public safety as well, you know, I mean, but anyways, I would say, yeah, get informed.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that's so important because I think more than ever, you know, we need to get folks out to vote. And I think letting folks know how they can get that information. So that was super, super helpful. And Mary, what would you like to add in terms of getting involved, voting, propositions, anything at all?
At Kinship, we do have the paperwork to vote and to register. So if you are confused or whatever, we're nonpartisan.
Oh,
So we don't tell people how to vote, but I think it's important for folks to be civically engaged, mostly our population, right? And so I'm always more about like, have a voice. You have a voice. And if you have the opportunity to do it, then let's do it, you know, because they need to hear you. You have something worthy to say because you're worthy, right? That's my whole thing, right? Or our whole thing. So I think it's important. And also, I know we've talked about nationally, but even being really invested in understanding locally what the different policies are, because like in each city, they have their own like police unions and everybody has their own city councils and how they distribute money and things like that. So I think folks really wanting to help our people is really getting civically engaged locally. It's important. It affects you like, you know, truly, you know, and of course nationally and everything like that too. But start where you're living, you know, and like, oh, do they reflect who lives here, you know?
Yeah, because I mean, ultimately, it's all the local politicians that are going to be
Yeah.
voting for you.
Yeah, right. And so just a follow-up question in terms of how could folks get information about voting? I love that Project Kinship has that. So how could folks get that information? Would they just go to the website?
They can call anytime. Our website, I think we just redid it, right, Steve? I think there's some like glitches or some things happening with our website, but I would definitely just call, and if anything, they can always reach out, email me. They can always ask. My email is really easy. It's Mary@Project Kinship. Yeah, I think it's important for people to get civically engaged.
100%. So we are so grateful and so appreciative of you both being here and sharing your wisdom, your heartbeat, your knowledge. And so what was it like for you both to tell your stories today and to be on the podcast?
These are always sacred spaces, like I think Mary was sharing earlier. It was really good to just be with family. We're all so busy. We're in COVID. I'm so proud of all of us, so proud of you all. And it's a great privilege to be in this work with you all. And it made my day really, really well. If I just share one last story with you as my takeaway, piggyback off what Mary said, I'm a story guy, so I'll share one last story with you. And it's been one of my favorites these days. The homie that came in and he asked a question. His question was, how does God choose what zip code or what family a kid is born into? And I knew why he was asking, because we've known him for a long time. And we know that he, the age of 12 or something like that, around there, went in the system. Dad got deported. Mom uses drugs and lives in horrific conditions. And, has lived that way for a long time. Picked up a drug habit, been through a lot. And I imagine he's asked that question is because how did God choose me to be in this environment? Out of all the places, how did God land me here? And we're not a faith-based organization, and I didn't want to give him some fluff because he's a no bullshit kind of guy. I didn't want to be like, well, I'm not sure, but I'm sure he's got a plan for you, which is true, but I don't think he's trying to hear that, And so I just looked at him and I said, I don't know that answer. I don't know how God chooses where he sends people. I don't actually. But I said, what I do know for sure is that when God made you, it wasn't a mistake. And that was enough for him, And I think for all of us being here, we remind each other that we're not mistakes. Mirror back to each other our own value and our worth. And at the end of it, we only have one life. I've lived half of it already. I'm hoping to live the other half. At the end of it, when we look back, and I think the four of us have a great opportunity or positioned in a way where we could really leave our communities better. And so I feel very blessed and grateful to be with all of you all.
Whoa, thank you, Steve. See, you just touch my heart every time. You and Mary both do with everything that you say. I'm trying to keep it together just to finish this up. But I feel like afterwards, I'm done.
Well, Mary's helped me heal a lot. So I feel stronger, actually. I was driving today, too. I felt a lot more healed, but it took a lot of work. I mean, it's, healing takes a lot of work, and I feel stronger, and that's for all of us, let's make each other stronger.
Seriously, this was healing for me. One, it was definitely the best part of my Monday, probably one of the best days of quarantine, and incredibly healing. I mean, you feel just your journeys. You feel it when you speak, both of you. Yeah, I'm grateful. I'm super grateful that you both were here today.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Our Stories Matter is brought to you by Trauma Informed LA, whose mission is to foster resilient communities that promote healing and well-being through collaboration, education, and community engagement. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Trauma Informed LA and our website, traumainformedla.org. Please give us 5 stars on iTunes so more folks can have access, and donate to traumainformedla.org so we can keep recording and healing through our storytelling episodes.